You're tuned in to Horror Slop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is Horror Slop.
Alright, kicking things off with a personal favorite. It's messy, it's weird, and it sets the tone real fast. Story 1. Don't blink.
Little Dead Nancy, by Theod Catlety. Sitting on the bench. Little Dead Nancy. Come take a seat. And swing with me. So my immediate response to this was to go back to the swing set, plop my butt down on the green swing, and start reciting. I attracted quite a crowd with this daring stunt, and I'd gotten to the second, Little Dead Nancy, when the teacher called us back in. Quite a bummer to everyone who'd hoped some zombie child would show up and murder me, but I did end up bonding with Leanne about it. By the next day, I'd all but forgotten about the poem and just settled with playing house with Leanne and the other girl, Aileen. She was walking me back to my house after a study date when this gaggle of college-aged dudes walked up behind us and started whistling and cat-calling us. We're 16, so, gross. Leanne just stuck her head up and looped her arm in with mine as we picked up the pace. This didn't settle with one of the guys, who sped up with us and grabbed Leanne's arm, calling her a bitch and asking what her problem was. I could smell the booze on his breath, and I tried pulling Leanne with me, saying that we have to get home as I had curfew. A lie, as my mom doesn't really care where I am ever, but I hoped this freak would get the hint and just leave us alone. It didn't work. This guy refused to let Leanne go and kept asking her to come with him. I was lucky. He only stabbed me once. When the cops came to investigate a disturbance, Leanne had been stabbed over 23 times. She was already dead. I was getting pretty damn close to it. I brushed my fingers on the chain of the red swing, almost laughing as I remember her tackling me to the ground. That almost laughter turned into sobbing as I sunk to the ground. Why couldn't God have taken me too, you know? We were best friends, going to be till the end. Little Dead Nancy, sitting on the bench. One eye long, and one eye gone. What did that poem even mean, one eye long? Kids were fucking stupid. I hiccuped, another tear weaving a path down my cheek. That was as far as I'd gotten the time I'd recited. I remembered Leanne's face, eyes wide with anticipation. Anticipation for what? I really don't know. Did that little girl really think that a zombie was going to tear me apart in front of her? Again. Kids are dumb. But they don't really mean it. I nearly froze as I heard the quiet voice behind me. I whipped my head around and nearly fell off the swing as I saw a little girl standing there. I slowly took it, expecting for her to lunge forward and bite me, but she just smiled as I wiped my face off and blew my nose. Thank you, you're Nancy. I asked, just to be sure there wasn't another little ghost girl with a missing eyeball. Yup. Nancy giggled as she began to swing back and forth. Push me harder, you won't kill me. I do remember you almost completed the poem. Rarely anyone does the full thing, and I can't remember the last time someone did it when they were alone. I know lots of things. Nancy chirped, pumping her legs back and forth to keep up the speed. I know exactly where to find him. I know how to take him and his bitchy friends out too. Eye for an eye, she reached up and flicked her dangling eyeball, tooth for tooth. I can help you kill him and gut him so he can't do it again. You think this is the first girl he hurt? This is just the first one he killed. I'd like to say I took my time to think about it. This was serious after all, and I sure as hell couldn't trust Nancy, whatever the hell she was. But I knelt down to her height almost immediately, offering my hand to her. Deal. I'll take you back to the playground when we're done though. Of course. I do like it here after all, there's a reason I'm a legend among the kids. Nancy took my hand and she changed. She grew in size, blonde curls turned into red hair, the dangling blue eye turned to a shade of hazel. When I stood, I was alone. But I could feel the grief inside of me turn to the coldest rage.
Need a break? Too bad. These stories don't wait, and neither do we. Next one's worse. In the best way.
Luckily, I've developed the perfect system throughout the years. It includes a neck pillow, a sleeping pill, closed shades, and earbuds. Of course, I was also seated behind someone who wouldn't stop crying. It wasn't even an infant as I had expected, but a grown-ass woman. She sat with her face pointed towards the window, and sobbed loudly. "Ma'am, are you all right?" she asked. The woman didn't respond. She just kept staring outside, crying. Non-stop. I wasn't as much annoyed as I was worried. But something about the situation seemed oddly eerie. I considered opening my own blinds to see what she was staring at outside. Before I got the chance, I heard another person crying a few rows behind me. I turned around to see a man sobbing loudly. He too stared out the window. His eyes were unblinking and didn't seem to produce a single tear. In fact, his entire face was rid of all emotion. He just sat there, crying without moving his mouth. "Sir," one of the neighboring passengers asked, as they leaned in to help him. No sooner had he peeked outside the same window as the man, before his eyes went blank, and he started sobbing with him. Then a fourth joined in, and a fifth. By the time we realized what was happening, half the plane had broken into an unbreakable rhythm of crying. In a haste, we did as instructed. First we made sure none of the still sane people got the chance to look outside. Then we proceeded to close the blinds by the crying people. Each of us careful not to look outside in the process. I let out a sigh of relief, but the small victory was quickly squashed by a panicked gasp. "They're not breathing," the stewardess called out. She was right, each of the previously sobbing passengers had died in their seats. Without a view of the sky, their bodies had simply shut down. In the span of just a few minutes, half the plane had succumbed to an unknown curse. After a few agonizing minutes of doubt, the stewardesses used their emergency code to open the cockpit. On the inside, we found the pilots crying unresponsively. We brought blankets inside to quickly cover up the windows, and removed the dead pilots. TCC.
Still here? Aw, look at you. Brave little meatbag. Too late to back down now. Next story's already watching.
My name is Finn Conway, and I have a lot going on in my life. I'm currently 22 years old and I'm completing my master's in computer science in a college located in a major city in the United States. It isn't too bad. I thoroughly enjoy computer science and I take night classes so I can still retain my underpaid day job as an IT guy for a small startup near my school. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate, and despite the somewhat expensive living prices in this area, I love the neighborhood and the people. Honestly, for a guy in his 20s who came from no money, I was doing pretty well. I was in a pretty ideal situation, that is, up until last week. Last week, my roommate moved out on me without much notice. He told me he got an offer for a job in another city across the United States, and that he'd already sold his half of the furniture in Craigslist that morning. This was all through text, by the way. By the time I came home from my night classes, his room was pretty much empty and he wasn't responding to my angry texts anymore. That put me in a severe bind. I made okay money as an IT guy, but part of the reason I was getting my master's was because I knew it would pay off when my degree became more valuable and I could work for bigger companies. After all, I had an unnecessarily large amount of student loans to pay off for my undergraduate degree on top of the price of achieving my master's and increasing rent. But tuition money and rising rent prices weren't even the biggest issues. You might wonder, why doesn't he just move into a one-bedroom or even a studio by himself? After all, I'm a guy who likes my privacy, and living in a one-bedroom wouldn't have been so bad. To answer your question, I would have moved into a smaller space if I didn't have a crazy online stalker I was busy trying to get a restraining order against. Turns out it's hard to get a restraining order if you don't know the real name of the person you're trying to file one against. You see, I used to play a popular online video game back in high school where you could get married with other players to boost stats, and this one girl took our in-game marriage way too seriously. She thought we were actually married. She would send me messages that were extremely creepy and a violation of my privacy, including asking for nudes and sending her own. I was very disturbed. Even though I told her I wasn't interested, that I was gay and I only married her for boosted stats, she continued to press on with the creepiness. I brushed her off as an overzealous gamer girl and eventually stopped playing the game entirely. But then she started finding personal information of mine online, like my private Facebook, Twitter, and phone number, and it eventually escalated to finding where I lived. She started sending threats against me and my family. Things got creepy and I had to file a report against her. She's been laying low for a while, but you can't blame a guy for being cautious. After all, I moved a total of 3 times since she first found my address, and she managed to find me every time. So yeah, a lot's going on in my life. You could say I had a streak of bad luck. I honestly hoped it was just mere bad luck and not a sign of something worse. Balancing my masters, my job, and warding off a crazy stalker has not been easy, but now I had to find a new roommate to fulfill what's left of my lease. I ended up posting an offer on Craigslist a few hours ago, offering interviews for a new potential roommate. Down under? Oh, so you're from Australia? I was surprised. He didn't have an Australian accent that I could detect. Hell, huh? Is that a city in Australia? I asked. I never heard of a city named Hell personally, but that didn't mean it didn't exist. Hector leaned forward in his chair, resting his elbows on his knees. Sounds like Australia to me. I tried laughing it off. Hector didn't look so amused. Like a demon, at games. Or sports. Or something. I thought you were joking. I said after a brief pause. Yeah, so I have a funny story for you. I got kicked out of my place recently for refusing to eat humans. They got offended and said I was being difficult and not following the customs of our kind or whatever. But I'm honestly just tired of eating humans and I want to try new things. There are so many different things to eat in this world and you honestly get sick of eating humans after a couple of centuries. No, I can promise this isn't a trick of any kind, he replied. So then, what do you eat? I probed. I eat chickens for their souls, you eat them for their physical flavor. What's the difference? Hector asked. I paused, for a second it was almost as if he had a point. And you used to like Nickelback unironically. Or maybe you still do. Hector motioned to my signed Nickelback poster on the wall adjacent to him. I felt my face getting red. I knew I should have hidden that before the interviewees came in. I was slightly offended that he would call me out like that. Easy. Rent's cheaper here and I don't need a lot of room. We demons aren't rich, we don't all use what you call the magic, and we aren't omnipotent either. I can't just make money out of nothing, though it'd be helpful. Hector droned. Besides, I love this part of the city. So much culture. So much food. So much fried chicken. I really, really love fried chicken. Don't we all? I said. Besides, I feel like you need me as much as I need this. You're Finn Conway. 22, working on a master's. Has had a stalker for a while now. If you ask me, your stalker's pretty insane and she's still out there somewhere. I can keep her away from you if you let me live here. Alright. Cool. Hector got up from his seat, looking dejected. I walked him to the door, and before I closed the door he spoke up. Listen, I really need this. If there's anything else you need, more rent, more anything, just, let me know. I nodded, and he gave a sheepish smile before walking off into the hallway. I froze up and turned my head to see a small, skinny woman in a wedding dress and messy, matted, greasy hair with bad makeup pointing a gun in my direction. Oh, don't act like you don't know, Mr. Peanut Butter 26, she grinned, revealing teeth that looked like they hadn't been brushed in a while. I instantly knew where this was going and who this was. Only one person would refer to me as my shitty username from that stupid game years ago. My stalker had found where I lived again, and this time she was taking things to a whole new level. How the fuck did you find where I live? I grit my teeth and looked around for security cameras, hoping they'd pick up on this very illegal activity going on. Sit, she ordered. I did as I was told and she brought duct tape from under her dress to wrap my limbs around the chair. She then went to the kitchen, humming a tuneless song. You know what? You're always so mean, Finn, she cut me off. You're always playing so hard to get, always. Her deranged voice shut me up quickly. I understand, though. I would want my future husband to prove their worth to me, too. But we're together now, and nothing can get in our way this time. Not the computer screen, not the cops. Amy and Finn. Partners in crime. Lovers forever. Finally married under the gracious fairies of Ashenhelm like fate dictated it to be. This is how it should have been from the start. So that's her name. Amy. She brought over 2 glasses of a dark red liquid from the kitchen on a silver platter that I didn't know I had. I've been waiting for this for months, for weeks, for days. I've been following you, you know. You really let your guard down, but I find that so adorable about you. When I saw that you posted a Craigslist offer looking for a roommate, I just had to make sure that it was you. And it was. So that's how she found me. My stupid Craigslist ad. It just registered to me that she might have been the 3rd interviewee who never showed up, and in that time she must have scouted out the area to plan this shit. For someone who was in the computer science field, I had really let my cybersecurity guard down and it led to my undoing. I was entirely too careless. I groaned, my head began to pound and my vision became even blurrier. She caressed my hands and began to put a ring on my finger. And now, it's official. We're married. Don't you see the fairy, Finn? The fairy's right behind you. Amy paused, realizing what she had said. She scrambled to her feet. I looked up at her, and she looked as if she saw a ghost. Who's there? Who are you? Amy pointed the gun in my direction, and I couldn't even physically flinch from the drugs. I figured she was hallucinating or something, but whatever she was seeing seemed pretty real and terrifying. In my haze, I managed to make out his words clearly. I wondered how he's managed to walk into my room, since the door was blocked by Amy and both of us would have seen him come inside. Being that my back was facing the balcony, I assumed that was the only possible way he got in. But how did he get all the way up to the 13th floor without anyone noticing him? And better yet, how was his timing so good? It doesn't matter what you believe, you're getting in the way of our marriage. And no one can stop us. Amy sneered. How the fuck did you get in here? Don't turn around, he ordered. Being as I wasn't exactly in a position to argue, I complied. Also, the hand on my shoulder was too large, long, gnarled, and sharp to belong to a human being, so that alone was enough to convince me. My head lazily lolled back to face Amy, who was still pointing the gun, rocking side to side on the balls of her feet and trying to put up the brave front she had a few minutes ago. Halloween's not coming for another year, buddy. I don't know how you got up here in that weird demon, furry, getup, but you're definitely not leaving this alive. I'm gonna fucking kill you. Amy's remarks truly made me wonder what she was seeing, and what I was missing out on. Hey, close your eyes and keep it shut until I say otherwise, he whispered gently. He enclosed his overgrown hands over my field of vision. Petrified and drugged to high heaven, I did what I was told to do and shut my eyes. I felt the room settle to a chill as the trigger was pulled and the shot rang. It was a deafening bang and an even more deafening silence afterwards. I squeezed my eyes shut, letting a wail of grief leave my throat, not wanting to witness what had happened. W8-. I heard more choking, some cracks, and screams. Stop, I'm sorry, please let me dash. I flinched as I heard Amy's threats abruptly change to pleas for her life. Her pleas became increasingly desperate as air escaped her lungs. Whatever was happening to her definitely wasn't something I wanted to see with my own eyes. My imagination did enough. She seemed to be flailing and gurgling before I heard a loud and sickening crunch and everything went silent again. I held my breath. Silence. Bewildering silence filled the room. I heard the quiet hiss of smoke in the distance, and smelled what I could only describe as burning rubber. You can open your eyes now, Hector said softly. I knew he had somehow survived the 4 gunshots and managed to quell Amy's insanity. I don't know if I want to, I blurted. Is she? Did you? I'm sure. Told you I was a demon. No one ever believes me. Hey, listen, I said as Hector approached me with a scissor. I was probably slurring my words, but I hoped I was still coherent enough to make sense. I know we started off, not exactly on the right foot, but I wanted to know if you were still interested in the offer. You really saved me from a tight bind just now, and I feel like it's the least I can do. Yeah. Lenient rent. Got it. I nodded blindly. Hector grinned as he began to cut the duct tape from my limbs. Sounds like a deal, Rumi. And number X200B. And number X200B. Edit. A lot of you have been asking to know what happened following Hector's arrival. And unfortunately, a lot of things have happened to me. I found some time to record my weird experiences, so you can check that out, here, and here.
You're still tuned to Horror Slop. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
Vicky, by Theod Catlety. Maybe you think I was a dumb kid, and I'll understand that. Maybe I was. But you have to understand, my mom was a single parent working as many shifts as she could pick up. It wasn't uncommon for her to send a babysitter my way when she couldn't get home in time, although typically they were younger teens that spent all their time on the phone and maybe threw a frozen pizza in the oven for dinner. Vicky was different in every way. For the week she took care of me. I learned from a real chef. Vicky winked and tossed the dough again, in Italy. Have you traveled a lot? Vicky did have a slight accent, I believe it was British. Vicky was almost too good of a babysitter. It was like she wanted to be my mom. To be honest, I think she did want to be. She was bizarre, in small ways. Ways I didn't think about until much later. She was never home at night, and she always did her laundry in the morning. I could hear the machine banging around when I woke up. Whenever we went out, she slathered her arms and face in sunscreen, almost a ridiculous amount. I asked her about it once. I just have delicate skin. Vicky loved to read. We went to the library twice when she was there and would stock up on all sorts of books. Typically horror, but she made sure I picked out at least 2 books for myself the second time we went. I chose 2 books of the Boxcar Kid series. My mom had given me a few of her old ones and I couldn't put them down. I still have those books. After everything went down I just never returned them. It was one of the best weeks of my life, but every night I asked the same thing when Vicky tucked me into bed. The last night I woke up to quiet sobbing. I glanced at my alarm clock. The numbers 1 verse 32 blared back in bright red. I slipped out of bed and into the hall, following the sound to my mother's bedroom. Her mouth was soaked in bright red, along with her hands and shirt. Blood. Oh. Andy. Her voice cracked as she picked me up and set me on the bed next to her, wrapping her arms around me. I'm something horrible. I've done horrible things. Forgive you for what? I asked. The worst thing possible. No, it's not fair. Vicky sighed and released me from her hold. It's not fair to ask you to forgive me. She got up. I have to leave, Andy. Can I do anything else for you? I had one more question. Why do you have a scar, Vicky? I woke up the next morning to a police officer shaking my shoulder. She wasn't my mom though. And she wasn't Vicky.
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah. That's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
I'm a Fucking Machine, by Nutatown JM. Short skirt. Thigh-high suspenders. Killer heels. Long, thick black hair. She had pulled out all the stops. The type of girl that made even a stone-cold bastard like me consider revising my one-night policy. I wish I felt as disgusted by my behavior as others did. I wish I felt it all. Had I become so detached that the only thing that made me feel alive was my dick? It certainly consumed my thoughts. Was my lack of concern a reason to worry? I didn't know why I was like this. Why I was in the same spot in the same bar the very next night. Why hadn't the girl in the suspenders been enough? I struggled to fathom my insatiable desire and pondered a cause, getting nowhere. Maybe the answer was in the blonde girl's panties. It's time to go, baby, I'll call you a cab. Her eyes glazed, she pulled the duvet up to her chin and looked downwards. She started to cry. Blondie was different. I wish I had gotten her name, but that had never been a piece of information that I chose to retain. I asked, of course, but never absorbed. Don't you like me? She sobbed, mascara running down her pretty face. Of course I do. But you know what this is, right? I didn't look her in the eyes. I should have known better. Someone as smooth as I like to think I was should have been able to charm himself out of the situation. I just couldn't find the words. It was something that happened to me so many times before. I found that after I'd picked girls up I just didn't know what to do with them. I left her alone in that room to dress herself. Not a single other word. Humiliated. Crying. I should have known what all those behaviors meant. But I was emotionally devoid. I walked to the kitchen and set out 2 glasses of water. One for her when she emerged, to wash down the alcohol before she embarked on the cab ride of shame. I thought I was doing a damn good thing. Consider it. You're a piece of shit. The voice came from behind me. I turned to face her. Her eyes were wide and glazed with tears. Her expression manic. She took me by surprise when she plunged the knife into my chest. I felt the blade pierce my skin, but I didn't feel the pain that I expected would come with it. Where did she get the knife? It wasn't one of mine. Who brings a knife to a bar? She looked surprised too. I don't think they were the type of sparks that Blondie had been anticipating from a romantic evening. Her eyes went from frenzied to frightened in seconds. There was a flurry of sound and movement. Men entered. They wore white hazmat suits and masks. I don't know how the fuck they got in my flat or how they appeared so quickly with no noise. The only thing that made sense was if they'd been inside the whole time, and that's a thought that continues to fuck with me. One grabbed Blondie and dragged her away, and the other stuck a needle in my neck. Everything went black. My muscles seized up and I hit the ground. I suspect the intention was to render me unconscious, but I was merely paralyzed. I thought you said it could weed out the crazy ones. We don't want that in the gene pool. Now she has to be disposed of. You put this whole operation at risk, you idiot. I could feel the dragging. But I still couldn't move. Still couldn't feel any pain. In fact, when I put some thought into it, I wasn't sure I'd ever felt actual pain. When I woke up in my apartment, it was as if nothing had happened. It was like a surreal dream. No blood from Blondie's attack, no Blondie. I wonder what happened to her. No scar in my chest. No knife. Nothing. Had I imagined it? Did I fail to score at the bar and drown my sorrows? I wasn't sure it was physically possible to consume the alcohol required for a vision so strong. I would have probably dismissed the whole bizarre event had it not been for Blondie's pink lace thong that had been kicked beneath my bed. I pressed hard against my skin in various spaces on my body, but I found nothing. I tried my best to be discreet. If Blondie was real, then so were the men. And if the men were real, they were watching. Regardless of my newfound consciousness, I still found myself at a bar within hours of discovering Blondie's panties, checking out the talent. I scanned the whole bar. I scoured the hot redhead in the corner who I was certain I would be taking home. And then I walked to the bathroom with my beer in hand. I took a few moments to decide, but I settled on my stomach. I lifted my shirt and pressed the glass shard hard against my skin. No blood came out. My worst fears were confirmed. Instead of blood there were sparks, and instead of a person there were wires. I'm a fucking machine.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine, stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
Seeing the people you've killed is a really good way to ruin a good night's sleep. I just returned from Afghanistan not too long ago. 8 weeks to be exact. You know what question I'm answering. 2 men and a kid. In all honesty, it should have been 4. When we were clearing a building, I saw a pile of rags on the ground. I kicked it out of the way, and with some meaty thuds the object rolled across the floor and began crying. The mother ran over and picked up her baby. The look in her eyes. I've seen the eyes of men who genuinely wanted to kill me. But hers were ones that didn't want me to die. They wanted me to suffer. Contact left, 2 males. All I heard in whatever language they speak were threats. The knife was still in hand. Inhale. 2 in the chest, 1 in the head. Exhale. Inhale. 2 in the chest, 1 in the head. Exhale. We detain the mother. I walk over to examine the bodies. The man with the knife only had 1 in the chest. Where is the other round? I look behind him. I see a kid. No more than 12. Dead. Hole in his throat. I got the jugular. There was more blood than kid. In the kid's hand was a Sandy .38 caliber revolver. I still haven't inhaled. Long story short, I'm clear. That's all that matters, right? I get to go home and enjoy my fat, American restaurants. I get to see my family. My pregnant wife. I get to look into her eyes. I wish there was a way I could see her eyes without her seeing mine. I don't want her to see what I did. After 8 weeks of no eye contact, there seems to be a strain on our relationship. A new drug. Norem no problem. I didn't know if it was the motto or the drug, but the doctor assured me it's a drug. Trust the name, was the motto. I started taking Norem, and this is where things start getting crazy. I pop 2 pills before dinner and I'm golden. I sleep like it was an Olympic event. I constantly have the same dream and occasionally wake up in places I didn't fall asleep. It became a party joke. Sometimes I'll wake up and my husband will be asleep in the bathtub, and sometimes he'll just be lounging around in the garden next to the tool shed. Everyone laughs. But if I told them the dream that preludes it, no one would laugh. No one laughs at the slaughter of a 12-year-old boy. The only problem with this Norem is I can't wake up. I have to watch this dream. When it becomes too much, I wake up outside of my bed. John, you're in the control group. Norem should have had no effect on you because it's sugar. My mouth was dry, I couldn't even drizzle out a word. I looked down at my arms and instantly felt pain shooting up and down. I rolled up my sleeves and saw the brands. The cuts. The piece of skin I flushed away. I hear the doctor say something along the lines of, "Oh, sweet Christ." I scramble for my phone and scroll down to my wife's name. I try calling it. No answer.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
I was 11 and the world was safe. Adventure meaning one go around the block with a pause at all the yards so Bumble and the neighbor dogs could trade a good sniff. We were paused in front of the Paulas to let Bumble say his hellos to their bully mix, Peanut, when I realized there was a car idling just up the street from us. I glanced at it without much interest. It was an SUV, looked like it was newish, the kind of car a ton of the soccer moms in my neighborhood drove. I thought they might be waiting for me to cross the street and gave a little wave for them to pass. The car crept slowly forward and I turned back to the dogs. Bumble was pawing at the ground and Peanut had reared up to stand on her hind legs, her front paws hooked over the top of the fence so I'd reach over and pet her. The SUV, still running, had come to a stop behind me. She won't let go of the damn dog. A man, the one who had hold of me, hissed back. While I struggled, my usually docile and gentle Bumble leapt at my attacker, snapping his teeth and snarling with all the ferociousness his small body could muster. Peanut was jumping at her fence, her head thrown back in deep, rumbling barks. Then kill it and get her in here. Did anyone see? The driver asked. I don't think so. I didn't see anyone. Good. Don't hurt Bumble. Don't hurt me. My eyes burned with tears and suddenly I was shaking uncontrollably. A warm puddle formed beneath me, but I just laid in it. How often had I been warned at home and at school about stranger danger? They had told us all about what we should do if we thought we were being followed or someone was making us uncomfortable. We need to pull over and swap license plates, I heard the man say. No, the woman replied. She was obviously on edge. Not yet. We're still too close. Let's get up the highway a bit. They kept talking. First arguing about whether to change the license plate, then about when and where they were meeting someone. Something about a handoff and money and getting me across the border before my face was all over the news. I didn't know what any of it meant. I was being crushed beneath an overwhelming wave of fear and confusion. The piercing wail that burst uncontrollably out of me filled the vehicle. Shut her up, the woman said. I was nudged roughly with the toe of his shoe and he wrinkled his nose in disgust. The man twisted in his seat. Her dog's following us. The other one, too. He sounded almost amused. Back over them. Don't hurt Bumble. Don't hurt me. The general hum of traffic told me we'd merged onto a main road. Probably the one right outside of my neighborhood. Gemma was becoming more agitated and kept muttering about how busy it was. The man was also fidgety and there was a line of sweat glistening on his upper lip. He wiped the sleeve of his jacket over it repeatedly, but it just reappeared again almost immediately. Why are we going so slowly? Gemma was anxiously drumming the steering wheel. We have to be at the depot in 2 hours. They won't wait, not even for a blonde girl. They will. You know how much a kid like this gets them. Metal crinkled and groaned from up front and Gemma laid on her horn. What the hell, the man demanded while Peanut howled at him through his window. A dog is trying to take off the front bumper. Run it over. Where the fuck do you want me to go? We're stuck here. People are looking. Gemma yelled. Desperation was seeping into her voice. And somehow, over it all, I heard that same familiar bark that woke me every morning from outside my bedroom door. The same one that greeted me when I got home from school every day. The same one that had chased us here unrelentingly. Peanut threw herself at the man's door again. The dog at the front bumper was obviously making some progress from the crunches that shook the car, and Tavi paced back and forth on the hood of the car. Why you okay? I barely heard the little old lady inside shout. But I heard her nonetheless, and it made me realize she could hear me, too. Gemma and the man were distracted with trying to placate the other drivers. It was only momentary, a second's-long slip-up in attempt to stave off more attention. With a fleeting glance at the man's knife, tucked out of sight of the window, I coiled my legs beneath me and lunged at the door. There was a scramble behind me and I was half hanging out of the car, frantically clinging to the side of it while the man yanked at my ankles. He and Gemma were yelling at me, cursing, threatening, but people were starting to get out of their cars and I just kept howling. I recognized Baxter as he rounded the car door from the front, where he'd been chewing up the bumper. He was a distinct mutt, brindle, with the hanging jowls of a hound dog, and huge. He lived a street over from us and we often found him napping peacefully in the sunniest spot in his yard on our walks. As he jumped on me, knocking the wind out of me, and launched himself off my back, he was anything but peaceful. The hold on my ankles immediately fell away and there was snarling, snapping, and screeches so terrified and agonized from both the man and Gemma that I froze up. Hands hooked themselves under my armpits and pulled me from the car. A man was holding me, asking me for my name, my address, but I just sank from his grip to the ground, screaming and crying. Onlookers had surrounded us and were trying to call the dogs, especially Baxter, off. It was only when Bumble, still shivering with exhaustion, crawled into my lap and started to lick my cheeks, that they began to relax. Fear of them quickly gave way to admiration and affection as they came to lie beside me with wagging tails and relaxed, lolling tongues. Gemma tried to escape the car, but she was pushed back in by some of the crowd and her door was held shut. The man made no attempt to get out. I just heard his low, suffering groans from the back seat. Still alive, but obviously unwell. I was able to point to Bumble's tags, where our home address and phone number were listed, and phone calls were made. The same man who'd pulled me out of the car carried me to a bench at the side of the road, where Peanut, Tavi, and Baxter sat at my feet. Bumble remained perched on my legs while we waited for the cops and my parents to show up. I didn't know what human trafficking was, or that sometimes bad people kidnapped little girls to sell them off and send them far away from home. Because of Bumble and the others, it would be a long time before I ever even learned the term or found out what the couple's intentions had been. What they did tell me was that Lhasa Apsos are an ancient breed. A guardian breed. They were used in Tibetan temples as an alarm system of sorts. If someone were to break in, the Lhasas were the first line of defense. Their job was to bark. And then it was their companions, the Tibetan Mastiffs, job to answer the call and take care of business.
Anyway, let's lighten the mood with something fun and... Nah, just kidding. It gets worse. Hit it.
What the fuck? I walked back home bow-legged, like a fucked up giant crab. The pain didn't subside, not nearly as soon or as much as I would have wanted. It lingered, throbbing like a pulsating vein, sending shocks of suffering coursing through my body. Ice packs, painkillers, some good old rest, nothing seemed to help. I spent the day covered in sweat, teeth gnashed to the point of breaking. My coworkers thought I was nuts. I didn't know how to tell them that the problem was my fucking nuts. Time flowed slow and thick, like molasses, each tick of every clock I saw seemed to carry a hint of rust. That's it. Time to go see a fucking doctor. Dear God, I hoped it wasn't that. Anything but that. If I saw insects crawling out of... No. Stop that. My eyes were bloodshot red and wide open by the time sunlight started streaming through the windows. The muscles in my limbs were stretched tighter than the skin of a bongo drum while my heart pounded like a wild beast in my chest. And my balls. Fuck. My balls. They had swollen further through the night, turning from oranges to big grapefruits to fucking melons. My dick slipped and slid between my gigantic testicles, like a black worm squirming and writhing on a pair of wrinkled breasts. My pubic hair looked like a tiny patch of matted black grass above my scrotum. The flesh around my crotch had reddened, as if the veins in my thighs had vomited out everything within them. Skin peeled off, flaky and ruddy and hot and wet. Doctor. Now. I staggered onto my feet, groaning in pain as my nuts, can't really call them fucking nuts anymore, my heavy coconuts dangled beneath me, threatening to tear free from my body. Something sloshed in my stomach, and I retched, falling backwards onto my bed, almost passing out from the pain. I dreaded how much it would cost me, but chose to call for an ambulance anyway. There was no way I was getting to the hospital by myself. No fucking way. My balls would rip free and my guts would slide out of the hole and splatter on the carpeted floor of my car before I could even pull out of my driveway. So I waited. I got dressed, as much as I could anyway, while using a chair as a stool to rest my beach balls. I don't remember much about the ride to the hospital. I was too delirious for that. Sometimes though, bits and pieces will flash through my head. Paramedics shouting into the radio, their hands trembling as they fondled my colossal balls with fear and something that almost seemed to approach reverence. Being placed on a gurney, gasps and screams erupting all around us as we rolled into the hospital. "You are on heavy painkillers, Mr. Stone, which is why you're having some trouble speaking." I nodded. Or tried to, I think. He must have seen the look on my face. "Oh, don't worry. We'll take care of it. Make some incisions here and there and drain whatever's in these suckers right out. You just relax. Now." He muttered something incomprehensible. "Huh? What was that?" I asked, wrestling with my tongue to slowly force the words out. My spine shivered as he spat those words out. What the fuck? Was I hallucinating? Then I heard another voice. "There seems to be some bone-like formation under the skin, doctor." Bone? Within the scrotum? That can't be right. Very interesting. We are recording this, right? What is that? Christ. It's glowing. What the fuck? Is that a tent? My groin was on fire. It felt like I was bumping uglies with a furnace. The nerve endings in my crotch seemed to pull and twist and shiver. I screamed. Again. And I wasn't the only one screaming. Every doctor in that room screamed with me, and I soon saw why. I had just given birth to a baby fucking eldritch monster. From my fucking balls. And it was a violent birth, one that had destroyed my cock and balls. I cried. For the beautiful appendages I had lost, for the doctors who had died, for the pain I had gone through, and most fucked up of all, for the baby I didn't even get to hold in my arms. The maternal instinct within me frightened me something awful. I just hoped that the government officials who would come to cover all this shit up would have some answers.
That last one tasted like fear and poor decisions. Let's see what the next bite stirs. Hope you're hungry.
There's a baby monitor in my daughter's coffin, by Ease Misery. When my daughter was born, we were elated. We had been trying for a child for almost 10 years. Now in our late 30s, we had nearly given up on ever having a baby of our own. But miraculously my wife Kelsey became pregnant. No one had ever seen two people happier than us when we delivered a healthy little girl. Kelsey named her Faith. It was sort of an ode to our long ordeal and the faith we had that someday we'd have a child. Our happiness lasted for exactly a week. We had slept through the night, which was not something we expected to do for a long time. The baby monitor hadn't made a peep. I woke up slowly and checked the time. 8 a.m. Faith hadn't woken us up at all. The doctor said it was failure to thrive, which basically meant they didn't know why she died. Kelsey stopped talking altogether. I had to arrange the funeral alone. Sleeping was impossible. My wife was just a statue now, going through the necessary functions but never more than that. She whispered something strange while she slept, but I didn't hear her voice otherwise. We stood side by side at the funeral. Our friends and family were sobbing, trying to console us. But we were silent. Our faith was lowered into the ground. I was amazed at how quickly you could lose a life, your own and someone else's. We went home and didn't let anyone in. I honestly thought Kelsey might kill herself. But instead she set the baby monitor up by the bed, like it was before. She turned it on and hummed something happily. I cleared my throat. What are you doing? My face fell. It was worse than suicide. Kelsey was going insane. Faith is dead, Kelsey. She isn't coming back. She's sleeping, Kelsey said excitedly. I can hear her little breath. For God's sake, Kelsey, but then I heard it. A soft, almost silent snore. A small sleepy sound. I ran to her side to be closer to the monitor. Finally I reached the coffin. It was so small. Tears came to my eyes and I pulled up the box, covered in dirt and fear. The top had been nailed down. I used my own fingernails to pry it open. They ripped and bled. I didn't feel any pain. Suddenly the lid was free and I unveiled the coffin's contents. You lied, I said firmly, pointing an accusing finger at her. I took a step back. What the? She's awake. Kelsey stood. We should feed her now. She brushed by me and walked towards the nursery. I followed her slowly. Inside the room I could see the other monitor, right where it had always been. Kelsey was standing over the crib. Faith is dead, I said steadily.
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in the coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is Horror Slop.
Trigger warning, number S, transphobia. Riley moved to our backwoods town in the middle of sophomore year. He was a skittish kid, small for our age, so he very quickly became the target of some good-natured teasing. He jumped every time someone got too close or raised their voice too loud near him, scampering away like a rabbit after a car backfired. I was a loner myself, much more into video games than social interaction, but I took pity when I saw Riley sitting alone in the cafeteria for the third day in a row and decided to share his empty table. He winced when I let my tray loudly clatter onto the plastic surface but regained his composure quickly and introduced himself. Yeah, I know who you are, I hand-waved, telling him my name in return. I started talking to him about the video game I was currently engrossed in and he responded with a similar level of enthusiasm. We got along easily, our conversation straying into me explaining the different social groups and weird quirks of our school. But good things never last, and the trouble came in the spring when swimming classes began. Hey Riley, you allergic to water or some shit? That why you stink so bad? Josh, one of the douchier athletes, splashed water on Riley's sneakers. Fuck off, Riley muttered back, earning him 10 push-ups from the coach for foul language. He did them silently before resuming his spot on the bench, closing his eyes and ignoring the teasing. Dude, what was up with gym today? Are you sick or something? I asked as we sat down for lunch, my hair still dripping from last period's lesson. I took a bite of meatball and chewed as I thought about how I had never seen Riley change, how no one had, not even a peek, and reason that a nasty skin problem would be a good reason to keep so private. Riley was staring at me now, waiting for a response. I swallowed. Fair enough, dude. Sucks though. He nodded and changed the topic to making weekend plans to see a movie, and I let the conversation veer into that direction instead. I didn't want to pry, and to be honest, I didn't really want to hear the gory details about whatever was going on underneath those baggy clothes. Gym class was 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Wednesday's class passed without any more incident than the same jeers Riley had gotten on Monday, and he ignored them entirely. But on Friday, shit hit the fan. "What, you some kind of fag?" Josh got closer to Riley, pushing his face in close. "I bet you need the stall 'cause you get a fucking hard-on from watching us change. Isn't that right, boys?" he asked, and his 3 backup cronies nodded, closing in the ranks around Riley. "We got ourselves a fucking pervert." "Just let him change, guys," I said, trying to restore any semblance of peace. This, however, backfired as Mark, one of Josh's friends, shoved me from behind. The second Riley was next to him, Josh's plan became clear as he grabbed the waistband of Riley's pants and pulled down hard, taking down his boxers too. He had started a line about an erection, but that died when it became very clear to everyone that Riley didn't have a penis. "Holy shit," Josh whispered, letting go of the clothing as he stumbled back in shock. Riley hastily pulled up his boxers and shorts and used everyone stunned in action as an escape opportunity, darting out of the locker room before another word was spoken. After I had processed what had just happened, I took off after him. I found Riley in the bathroom I knew he preferred the most, the one that was meant for handicapped students and was a little room of its own. He had always claimed to like the privacy, but now I understood the real reason why he wouldn't go into the multi-stall bathrooms. I could hear him crying through the locked door and I sat with my back against it, sighing. I didn't know what to say, so after letting him know it was me and not one of those dicks, I didn't say anything. Probably 5 minutes passed before his crying subsided a little and he spoke, his voice muffled by the door. "This is why I left my last school," I heard him mutter. "I wanted to be treated like a boy, and the people that knew me as a girl weren't very understanding." There was a pause where he blew his nose loudly. "I thought it would be different if I was just a boy from the start, you know. But it's not." I heard a slam, like his hand hitting the floor. Nothing changed. I shook my head before realizing he couldn't see it. "Nah," I replied. "I don't date boys." We went to lunch as usual and ignored the whispers and stares. The rest of the day was a blur. I was trying so hard to block out everyone's bullshit that I don't remember a damn thing. I had wanted to tell a teacher, the principal, anyone, but Riley begged me not to. He said it would just cause more problems and it would make his mom worry too much. He looked at me with pleading eyes and I promised to obey his request. I can't begin to express how much I have regretted that decision every day since. We agreed to meet at the movies at noon the next day before heading home on our separate buses. That was the last time I ever saw Riley. They had burned him with cigarettes and carved slurs into his skin. They cut off his breasts and raped him so badly that he had internal injuries that would have left him unable to even use the bathroom, that is, if they hadn't lynched him and left him to die, naked and bleeding, bruises covering his face so entirely that it had to be a closed casket funeral. I let his mother grieve to me. Her husband had died several years ago and Riley was her only child, so she had no one else. It was weird, seeing pictures of Riley as a young kid with long hair, wearing dresses and holding baby dolls, in pictures around their house. His mom blamed herself for not being able to afford the hormones that he begged for and wondered if he would have passed, if he would be alive if he had been able to have access to them. I tried to tell her that it wouldn't have made a difference, but the words were hollow, since I was also blaming myself. If I had just told someone, if I had asked him to sleep over at my house and we had gone together instead, if. My parents only let me take 2 weeks off of school for grieving before they insisted I went back. They had given up on my grades at that point, but they told me that I couldn't stay in the house forever, and so, back I went. But the school was empty without Riley, emptier still with everyone gawking at me. I sat down alone at our table and examined the ingredients on my milk carton closely, trying not to cry. Someone sat down across from me, and I looked up to see Josh leering across the table. My vision went red as he smirked. "Where's your girlfriend?" he asked smugly. Riley was a boy and you killed him, I whispered, a tear falling down my face despite my best efforts. That just made Josh laugh. You need a dick to be a man, faggot, he responded breezily. I lunged across the table, screaming incoherently, unable to see anything but white-hot rage as my fists pummeled his face, the onslaught too sudden for him to defend himself. It took 3 teachers to pry me off of him and I got sent home immediately. Luckily, I didn't get in more trouble. I managed to break his nose, but the school opted to give me online coursework for the rest of the year and gave my parents recommendations for counselors. I wondered if not expelling me was some sad attempt at atonement for not preventing Riley's murder, but I never asked. But Josh's words replayed over and over in my head that you needed a dick to be a man. I wondered if they had said that to Riley, too, as they tortured him. I felt like I knew the answer.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I did it. Can I eat now?
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon, and leave a comment telling us what story made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same that crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.